Hi, this is Shotgun Tom Kelly, and now that I have your attention, you wanted to be close to him in the dugout during his impressive 15-year Major League career because he was always watching, listening, and looking for an edge. Now, Kurt Bavacqua brings that edge to Dirty Kurt's Dugout, where you can listen, watch, and be a part of the most honest, informative baseball show available today. Now, here's Kurt.
So, Shotgun Tom Kelly, he's a legend in the radio industry in Southern California, and boy, I've known him for a long time. He was nice enough to put that intro together for us when we started the show back 3/4 of a year ago. I kind of lost all time frame, and I'm sure it's due to COVID and the shutdowns that we had and the way the games were played in 2020, limited schedule, which has carried over to now, and we'll get into that in a minute with the negotiations and the collective bargaining agreement. But first of all, as always, I want to thank our sponsors, Hacienda Casablanca out in El Cajon. Cindy and Tony will take care of you just like they do me when I go out there. And producer Joe, we have a great time. 700 North Johnson in El Cajon. I'll remind you of that address before we sign off. And also our good friends at Lacima Oil, where today somebody's going to win the $100 gift card. So call your friends, even call your enemies. Somebody's going to win that card, and I'll show it to you again. But first of all, let me tell you what's the haps. Welcome to Dirty Kurt's Dugout, by the way. I'm Kurt Bavacqua, and we're here every week for you, trying to bring you the latest of what's going on, and what's going on, besides very little, in baseball is happening down in Jupiter, Florida, where, there's a little give and take. But to be perfectly honest with you, all there are threats being thrown out there. And let me tell you what I mean by that. MLB has come out with a couple of statements in the last week. And the first one was, without a collective bargaining agreement in place, we must postpone the start of spring training until at least March 5th. Yesterday, Major League Baseball made itself crystal clear. How clear? Crystal clear to the MLBPA that if a deal is not done by February 28th, it's Monday, regular season's games will be canceled with no makeup. Let me tell you what those two statements mean, unless you've got it all figured out. Doesn't take much either. So even though I don't consider myself the brightest bulb on a tree, I can read between the lines on these two. And the first one's easy, because the first one is just not true. Without a collective bargaining agreement in place, we must postpone the start of spring training. The owners didn't have to postpone any of spring training. This is a lockout right now. It is not a strike. So this lockout is 100% on the owners. And the reason they've done it, it's a negotiating tactic. Rob Manfred himself said that they did it in hopes that it would bring the negotiations to a finish quicker. Well, that hasn't worked. As a matter of fact, both sides are really going at a snail's pace. And if in fact they're going to call off regular season games, because they did not say how many, which confused the heck out of everybody that saw the statement. And it was said, if a deal is not done by February 28th, regular season games will be canceled. How many regular season games? What regular season games? Join me and tell me what you think of these statements. Not whose side you're on, because I don't really care about that. I want to see them do exactly what you want to see them do. Come to an agreement so that we can watch baseball again. On February 10th, if you remember, the commissioner said, if you don't remember, the commissioner, Rob Manfred, said that he considered missing games as a disastrous outcome for the industry. It's a disastrous outcome, but they've got a few days to get this deal together. Folks, it's just not going to happen by Monday. That's all there is to it. So we're going to see what the league does. Let me tell you some of the separations between the two. Last year, the minimum salary for a Major League Baseball player that was on a 26-man roster was $570,500. A lot of money. MLB wants it to go up to $640 in 2022 from $570. That's a pretty nice jump. I take that back. The league wants it to go to $640. It's a pretty nice jump. The Players Association wants it to go to $775. With $30,000 increments every year between 2022, which would be a $775, through 2026 would be the last year of this particular CBA. MLB wants it to be $640 with $10,000 increments every year through 2026. So from $640 to $680. The Players Association wants a big jump. And I think it's a big jump. But I think that's where they are so they can negotiate down. But there's very little movement. Very little movement. I don't even want to throw out there who do you think's at fault. And I'm not going to, because I don't want to hear the riffraff that I see on social media every day. I don't want to hear your opinion on who's at fault. I want you to chime in and give me an educated statement about what you think is going on. Are you familiar with negotiations? Do they always start like this? Do they wait until the final hour to put the most important things to bed? That's the part I can't figure out. Because this thing that I'm going to talk about next, I think, is one of the bigger deals, and they haven't even really started on it yet, with the exception of right at the beginning, MLB told the Players Association where they stand. The Players Association told them what they wanted. And then basically nobody's moved since that time. And that's the bonus pool for pre-arbitration people. I'll explain that to you. Now, we all know that you're eligible for arbitration as a major league player after you play 3 full seasons. That's approximately 172 days out of 180 something. Gives you a full season at the major league level. After you've had 3 of those, you're eligible for arbitration. Well, they changed that. In the last CBA, they made a Super 2 class. So in other words, if you had 2 years and you were in the top 22% of the players that had between 2 and 3 years, or in other words, it came out to any player that had over 130 days in the big leagues. So if you had between 130 and 170, not quite a full season, but 2+, they want to make a little bonus pool for you. Well, the owners want to put, they started at 15. They want to put 20 million into the bonus pool. That only equates to about 30 players, by the way. The Players Association, you ready for this? Wants 115 million. Because they want to cover as many as 150 players. They want that percentage to go from 22% to 80%. I'm going to tell you why I don't have any problems with any of these numbers that are being thrown out there. I just kind of sit back and listen. But take the case of a kid by the name of Casey Sadler. This 2022 season is going to be Casey Sadler's 13th as a professional baseball player. 13th season. Chime in, guys. Because after you hear this, you might want to. This is his first year of arbitration. How can that be, Kurt? How can that be? He's going to be a free agent in 2025. And we all know what that means. He's got the ability to go out and peddle his wares to any team in professional baseball. Well, Casey signed in 2010. So it will be his 16th year of professional baseball that he finally becomes a free agent. And that's if he doesn't get sent back to the minor leagues in any of the upcoming 3 years. These are the guys you don't hear about or see how much they make because it gets buried. And these guys, and I say guys because there's a bunch of them. Maybe not to that extreme, but there's a bunch of guys. Forget about millionaires versus billionaires. 71% of major league players make less than $1 million. 60 some percent of them make less than 600,000. And believe it or not, there's 17% of major league players that make less than 100 grand. Well, how is that possible? It's possible because think about the guys that's on your favorite team's roster that you saw disappear for a month or two and then come back up to the big club and maybe stay for a week and then disappear again. Those are the guys. Those are the guys that are making less than 100 because they're only paid at the rate of 570, 500, at least last year, while they're on the major league roster. When they get optioned out, they're not paid at that rate anymore. They're paid at whatever rate that they negotiated at the beginning of the year. Probably signing a minor league contract. And it's automatic that if you go up to the big leagues, you're automatically making the minimum salary. So whatever that comes out to per day, we can figure it out if we put a calculator to it, but why? If a player's up for a couple of weeks, then he'll make his 20 grand, 30 grand, and then he's gone. And he goes back to the minor leagues for 2 or 3 months. And then if they need a guy like him, they'll call him back. That's the way it works, folks. So any monies that these two sides are apart right now will be covered by the expanded playoffs that both sides have sort of agreed to, and also the uniform ads. Yeah, MLB PA kind of gave Major League Baseball the rights to put ads on the uniforms. That makes the player a walking advertising campaign. I don't have to tell you about the Nike swish or the 3 stripes of Adidas or a UPS patch. You might see that on every major league uniform. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm betting it's Bally's or MGM Grand. That's where my money's going, along with everybody else's. But let's remember that if the players don't receive their full pay, they can reject the extended playoffs and the ads on the uniforms. So in other words, if the owners do what they threatened to do yesterday, and if things aren't done by Monday, they're going to call off, cancel regular season games, which only hurts us. It's a threat. And I don't like the fact that I'm seeing threats coming from one side or the other. Because I got to tell you, I'm going to sit down across the table with my committee when MLB came out with that statement and push for setting a strike date. And let's see how the owners like it. Because all they're trying to do is make the players look bad. And I don't think they're negotiating in good faith. I think the players could maybe do a better job, but as soon as the owners start to negotiate in good faith, then I think you'll see movement from the Players Association side. And I know you're saying, oh, he's an ex-player. That's the reason he's saying that. Really isn't. If you read from the smarter people that writes columns and blogs, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about Jeff Passan or Bob Nightingale. I respect those guys. They work for MLB. So ask Ken Rosenthal what happens if you write something negative about Major League Baseball. Let's look at the history real quick. And I want to remind everybody out there, if there is anybody out there, I don't even know for sure if I'm on the air. I don't see anybody coming in, that we're giving away this gift card. Producer Joe's going to come on the air with me in a couple of minutes, and he's going to throw a question out there at you all that came from our last show. Came from our last show. So, courtesy of Lacima Oil, your local Chevron dealers, get a $100 gift card. You might better fill up your tank quick, too. Because with everything that's going on in the world, I don't know what gas is going to be in a week or so. So we've got some action. I can rely on my buddy Terrence up in LA. Dodger fan, folks. Where the hell are all the Padre fans? Jeez, I know. Terrence found a way to make his little "I'm here, Kurt" blue to remind me that he's a Dodger fan. Let's go back into history of the negotiations between what at the time was the beginning of the players union and the owners. 1972 was the first strike in Major League history. In 1972. And the issues of contention in that strike were pensions and salary arbitration. 1972. 50 years. And we're still talking about salary arbitration today. You know why? The owners hate it. Probably because of one guy more than anything else, and that's Scott Boras, because he figured a way to slap their butts in every salary arbitration hearing. He went in prepared. He knew exactly what he was doing, and that's why he became one of the best agents in the game. 1973, there was a lockout over, what do you think? Salary arbitration. In 1976, there was another lockout. And this had everything to do with my good buddy, Curt Flood, challenging the reserve clause. Marvin told Curt, not me, that he was going to lose. Probably. And Curt Flood said, we're doing it anyway. Curt Flood was one of the nicest men you'll ever meet. He was a prideful man. He didn't think it was right that he could just be treated like a piece of meat. I told you this before. Curt Flood was a black man. He had had enough of that. And when he got traded from St. Louis Cardinals to Philadelphia Phillies, he didn't want to go. So he challenged the system, and he lost. But he made the way for the Andy Messerschmitts of the world, the Catfish Hunters of the world, who found clauses in their contract that challenged the contractual obligation of the owners, and they won, and free agency was born. In 1980, there was a strike over free agency and compensation for players lost in free agency. In 1981, there was another strike. This is where really everything changed. And that was over free agency and compensation for players lost. 1985, there was a strike over pensions, salary arbitration, and minimum salary. In 1990, there was a lockout, and the points in that situation where pension, salary arbitration, and minimum salary the same as in 1985. And then the big one, 94 and 95, where there was 948 games lost. There was a strike over the salary cap. And it was ugly. It took a long time to recover. And both sides, either side, certainly wants that to happen again. So now they are negotiating over free agency the way it's done, because the owners have figured out a way to manipulate it a little bit. Salary arbitration and the minimum salary, same as all the arguments all along. But there's been some addition. Service time manipulation, competitive integrity, and the luxury tax. Well, what do you think? Because of the shenanigans of the owners. That's why all of that stuff is coming into discussion. Let's not forget that the owners were found guilty of collusion back in the mid to late 80s and even parts of the 90s. The owners thought it was a good idea to get together and collude with one another and not sign free agents. I was part of that. That's why my career ended when it did. It probably would have been extended a couple of more years, but it wasn't. So before I go to Joe, producer Joe, to you, and give away this card, I'm going to give a shout out to a group out there that that I am part of on Facebook, and that's the Kansas City Historical Society. It has to do with KC baseball, naturally. And there was a post. I don't know why I got involved in this, but the guy that's the administrator of the group is awesome. I mean, he posts some great things, great pictures. I love to see some of my teammates from back in the 70s when I was with Kansas City. But this post was made, and there were some follow-up comments by people that are members. And I kind of chuckled when I read some of them, because one of the guys said, it looks like Kurt has issues, because what somebody did in the group was, I think it was about a fight that George Brett and I had over a hard slide at second. And I think that's the way this conversation got started. And somebody posted the times that I was ejected from major league games throughout my career. And I thought it was pretty good. It's the first time I had ever seen it. There's a debate about one of the numbers on here, so I'm going to throw it out to you guys because I know you guys are smart and you can find out stuff. But the first time I was ever thrown out of a game goes back to 1973 when I was with Kansas City and we were playing Oakland. And I got in a fight at third base with Billy North. And yeah, we scuffled around and it caused a rift. Dick Williams was the manager. It was right at third base in Kansas City, right next to the Oakland dugout. Had some knots on my head afterwards. I found out it was because of Sal Bando. But Nestor Shylock threw me out of the game. And it just so happens that Nestor Shylock was the home plate umpire the first time I ever went to the plate in the big leagues. So I have a fondness for Nestor Shylock, even though he threw me out of the game. I don't blame him for throwing me out of the game. Billy North got thrown out of the game too, by the way. The next time was in 1975 when I was with Milwaukee. This was after I was with Kansas City. Larry McCoy threw me out for fighting, this time at second base over a very aggressive slide by George Brett. I wish I would have thought to bring up some video. I don't know if we would have been able to find that, but you've seen the video of Hal McRae going into Willie Randolph during the 77 playoffs, where he basically takes him almost into left field. Well, George and Hal were getting a pretty good reputation for going into second base pretty hard. As a matter of fact, George got in a fight with Greg Nettles going into third base one night. So it's not like these guys are innocent. So George comes in hard. I completed the double play and got nailed. And we proceeded to have a little bit of a scuffle. The next time I got thrown out was the beginning of the night of, you could say the Lasorda rant started. It was in LA. It was against the Dodgers. And Tom Niedenfuhr was on the mound. And Joe LaFay was at the plate. And the first pitch thrown, after giving up a home run.
Bando short hops it, goes down to second green. Whoa, is he taken out at second base by McRae?
See, Dick Green says nothing. Probably around
Watch Bando again. He's trying to get the lead runner. Now watch McRae. Green, a dead duck. Watch McRae once again.
All right.
And
that is the way the slides used to be before they said no more. And I think it was Chase Utley up in LA that destroyed some kid's knee. I don't even remember his name. And that really predicated everything that's going on as far as the slides into second base, just like we call it the Buster Posey rule at home, because he's got his ankle broken and you're not allowed to go into the catcher anymore for the most part. So that was why I got kicked out of the game in Kansas City when I was with Milwaukee. But this one is in LA. Niedenfuhr hits Joe LaFay in the head. Joe West throws me out of the game. Now, this is why. I started to go towards the mound. LaFay's crumpled in a heap at home plate. The pitch after Broderick Perkins hits the go-ahead home run off of Niedenfuhr. Joe LaFay is on the ground, like I said. Joe West intercepts me because he was the first base umpire and goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going out to protect my guys." And he goes, "Well, why don't you tell the rest of your teammates?" And I turned around, there's nobody else out of the dugout. I can't tell you how upset I was. So I turned back around to Joe. I go, "You got to throw me out of the game." I go, "I'm not just going to walk meekly off the field here. So let's make believe we're arguing and throw me out of the game." Sure enough, he did. And I waited for people to come in after the game was over into the clubhouse and was airing people out because of what had just happened, and nobody went out to protect LaFay or protect our integrity, I guess you could call it. I'm not talking about having a full-fledged brawl like I'll talk about in a minute. So I'm screaming and hollering, and here comes the media. And somebody said they find Niedenfuhr, and I said they should have fined the opposing manager. I use different terminology, who ordered him to throw the pitch. Well, this started the feud between Lasorda and I. So there you have it. And the last time I got kicked out of a game was by Steve Ripley, Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, in one of the biggest brawls in the history of the game. 8/12/1984. San Diego Padres against the Atlanta Braves. We all remember Pascual Perez. We all remember that day. And if you don't remember it or have never heard of it, you need to YouTube it. And remember, this started in the first inning. I don't have issues to the guy that's a member of the Kansas City Baseball Historical Society. I don't have issues. I didn't get kicked out of the game in Atlanta until the 8th inning. That's pretty good. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about you. Because there's no good news coming out of Florida. And I want to give this $100 gift card away. So, Joe, take that picture down. Hey, I just got to protect my players. Hey, I'm going to tell you something. That day, if you isolate a lot of different shots throughout the course of that melee, you're going to see Garvey take guys down. You're going to see Tony Gwynn tackle guys. You're going to see Flannery in fights. You're going to see a lot of stuff if you really take your time to look at it. It's just not one or two people. It was caused by one or two people. But that's the way the game was played then. I don't know why guys get in fights now. They don't pitch inside anymore. And when they do, hitters go nuts. So, Joe, what do we got? I know this is from the last show.
Hello.
With Jeff Zahn, the guest.
Right.
So what do we got going on? How are we going to give this away?
This is for our segment, Did You Hear That? Just listen closely to our episodes and try to keep everything in your memory because you never know what we're going to ask. So in our last episode with Greg Zahn, he mentioned that he was lured out of retirement to the San Diego Padres by two current at that time Padres. Does anybody remember which two players in 2011 those were that lured him out of retirement? But he did retire after spring training. So hit us up in the comments.
Two guys that were with the Padres at the time. I remember him talking about this. I don't remember who the players are. So,
well, I can't tell you right now because everybody's going to hear it.
We're opening this up to no, I have no idea, so I'm not going to try to guess. But I want to see what people come up with here. I remember his coming out of retirement didn't last too long.
No, if I recall, he only played one game. He was pretty much done, he said. But these two guys said, "Hey, come on up, $800,000, come live in San Diego," and he did for a very short time. Of course, he never made it past Peoria, but he came out for a little bit.
Well, Zani's a 15-year Major League veteran, so he kind of got in quite a few games behind the plate. We thanked him for being our guest last week, and we always thank our title sponsor, Hacienda Casablanca, out in El Cajon. Tony and Cindy treat you right when you go out there. So tell them that Joe and I sent you. 700 North Johnson in El Cajon, and of course, Lacima Oil, your neighborhood Chevron dealers. I've been looking forward to the time where nobody was going to get the question right. And today might be that day.
It's a good one.
Because you have to listen and you just have to pay attention, that's all. But the shows don't last that long to where you're going to completely forget about it. I mean, if it's not, this is not going to be the same question next week.
Nope.
So it's probably going to be something that I mentioned today about the negotiation. So remember the different things that I talked about. And it looks like we might put this card in our pocket and keep it until the next show, Joe.
Well, I'm watching for comments. I'm not seeing anything yet, but we can hold on to it. If it's not guessed by the end of the show, we're not going to reuse it. I'll review what it was.
Well, we'll let everybody know what it was, and as a matter of fact, we'll give somebody about another 30 seconds, and then we'll call it a day, and then we'll wrap this show up until next week, and hopefully, I tell you what, it seems to me like the owners have drawn a line in the sand. And I think the Players Association needs to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it's become quite evident that what I've been telling you guys for the last 2 years, that based on the negotiation that I saw between Manfred and Tony Clark in the COVID-shortened 2020 season, that Rob Manfred, before he left, being a commissioner, was going to try to break the union. And I think that's what he's doing right now. Or he's trying to see if he can. I don't think he's going to. The union is a lot stronger than the owners and all commissioners have ever thought it was. Did you see the glare in Tony Clark's eyes? Tony Clark's fighting for his job because he got beat up the last couple of negotiations. And ever since he's been the head of the Players Association, things really haven't gone the Players Association's way. So I believe that Tony Clark's fighting for his job. Rob Manfred is trying to break the union. And he thinks that all these guys that are making all this big money are going to force the smaller guys like the Casey Sadlers of the world to fess up and say, enough's enough. I can't afford being away from this thing. Remember, it only takes 8 owners to cross the line. It takes 60% of the players. 60% of the players are a lot. But 8 owners out of 30 is not. So as we get closer to opening day, and there is an actual threat of games being lost, because right now there's a threat of injury. If these guys don't have a full spring training, we're going to see as many injuries as we saw last year. I think there were 800 people that spent time on the injury list last year.
Wow.
800. That's a stupid number, folks. And guess what? It'll be just as many this year if they screw around and keep doing what they're doing right now. We need to put an end to this thing. We've been saying that for a couple of weeks, but now we're seeing threats being thrown out instead of negotiations being done. But at least they're continuing to meet. So I think that is a plus. And Joe, we're done for today, buddy. So your question was a good one. And who are the 2 players? I'm dying to know.
Well, here we have it.
Loretta and Brad Osmus. So Mark
2
Loretta
really
and Brad
smart baseball guys.
lured, and they're back in baseball. Brad Osmus
Yep.
is the assistant to Young in Texas, Chris Young, and Mark Loretta is the assistant to the CEO down at Petco Park with Eric Grupner. So they're both high-ranking guys in baseball. They knew their stuff was Zani. They got him back, but took one foul tip too many and said, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Well, Joe, thank you. I appreciate it. Again, Cindy and Tony, thank you. Lacima Oil, Tom, thank you. We will, you guys have a good weekend. Let's keep our fingers crossed, both for what's happening down in Jupiter and also what's going on over in the Ukraine and Europe. We pray for those people and hope that ends very soon. I want to see them both end this weekend. That would be a good thing. So until next week, this is Kurt Bavacqua. Tune in to Dirty Kurt's Dugout and subscribe and like and check and send to your friends and all of that stuff so we can keep coming to you with bigger numbers and really giving you good stuff down the road. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you soon.